lecture. Today we will start part 1 of our A5 flyer assignment. This will be a 4-part assignment that we will be working on for the month of October. Let's get started. So for this assignment, you'll notice flyer part 1, A5, and this section of the assignment will be due for next class, October 13th. For this assignment, we are really going to break it down. The print industry is more than just the final product. We are part of every step. Sometimes a customer comes with branding, and sometimes we get to create it. Sometimes a customer comes with all the pieces, and it's up to us to put them together for the final product. Today we are going to start from the very beginning. The purpose of this assignment is to create a hardware store flyer from scratch. Part 1 of this assignment, we will start by creating a template. You have likely noticed that week to week, the store's products may change, but the colors and background tends to remain the same. The objectives. Create your InDesign template, add custom store name, add social media icons. These will be sourced from our previous assignment, add website, and add name. For the specs, as usual, we have our document size. Columns and gutters will be new that we'll be adding this week. Our margins, bleed, and then we'll be adding Pantones. Pantones should sound familiar from today's lecture, and now we will add them to InDesign. You will then have a branding font for the name of your store. This font can be anything of your choice. You can download one off the internet, or you're welcome to use a font that you already like on your computer. And then we'll have the type font. We'll be using Arial, and the social media icon boxes will be 1/2 inch. To be submitted for next week is submit the compressed main folder to Brightspace, and you're also going to export a PDF with all the printer's marks and bleeds for this section of the assignment. Be sure the subject line is a proper naming configuration. So I've written them down. You have your main folder. So everything over this entire month will be safely saved in your main folder. We'll have today's working file, flyer 1, with a package folder once we've completed it, and then in your supplied folder you will add the social media icons. They will be directly copied and pasted from last week's folder into this week's folder. Here's the criteria and points on marking this section of the assignment. And this week I've added a template. So this template shows you what we'll be creating today. So you'll have your branding font. So this is the font of your choice for your store name, and you can pick whatever store name you want for the hardware store. Our primary Pantone for the top. We have a secondary Pantone. We're going to use 50% of our primary Pantone. We're using 0.5 point lines here. Our social media icons. These should look familiar. And then we'll add the second box is also our primary Pantone. And we've added some type. So you're going to have your website. And then you're just going to add your name to the bottom of our template. So this is what we're creating this week. So first things first. We need to go to our desktop and create a new folder. So we're creating our main folder for this assignment. And we're going to immediately add a supplied folder. So to make things simple, we're going to start by getting our social media icons from last week's folder, and we're going to input them into this week's folder. So I've gone to my NSCC folder on my hard drive, This is where you should have all your different classes. Print production, you can see that I have assignment A1, 2, 3, and last week was the bleed assignment. So AMCA A4 bleed, there's my package folder, there's my second exported PDF with all of our marks and bleeds. I have a supplied folder, and this is where we find our social media icons. So those are the only 4 that I need. So I'm going to copy, copy 4 items. Now I'm going back to my A5 supplied, and I'm going to paste my 4 items. There we have. So I'm not removing them from last week's folder, simply copying them and adding them to this week's. Let's get started with our assignment sheet. So we are going to open up InDesign. From here, we're going to create a new document, same that we've done before. Create new. And we're going to add our width and height. So according to our assignment sheet, it's 11 inches wide by 17 inches tall. So the orientation should be portrait. We turn off facing pages because that's what we always do. Here is our columns and our column gutters. So this is what's added today. So if you ever think in a magazine, the text on a magazine or on a newspaper goes down in columns. So it could be a full article, but there'll be small 2-inch or 3-inch columns to kind of help break down the reading and make it a little easier. So because InDesign is designed for this type of publication, we can add columns. So I want 3 columns. So on my document, there will be 3 separate pieces of information. The gutter, just like in bowling, the gutter is on the edge of the column, on the edge of the lane, and so we're just defining what that space width will be in between each column. So as indicated on your assignment sheet, it's going to be 0.05, half an inch. From there we have our margins. So remember, your links are connected, and our margins for this assignment are half an inch. And we have a bleed for this assignment. So a bleed is 0.125, eighth of an inch, as indicated on our assignment sheet. So you've also noticed that the links are attached and there is no slug required. We can now select Create. So here is our start of our template. So we have our red line for our bleed. The edge of the white is our template or our trim size, finish size. So this will be the 11 by 17. The purple pink line is our inner margin. So we have 1, 2, 3 columns, and the width between our columns, the gutter is also half an inch. If you miss this, you can go under Layout, and there's a section for margins and columns. So if you missed it starting, or maybe you typed in the wrong measurements, instead of starting over, you can go into Layout, Margins and Columns, and this gives you an opportunity to update your margins or update your columns if need be. There's also the option for if you forgot to add your bleed, or maybe the document size changed to portrait on you, you can go to Document Setup. So it's File, Document Setup, and this is fairly familiar. So we have our 11, see, it changed. 11 by 17. This is an awesome time to check it. Facing pages is off, our margins, and our bleed. Perfect. So first things first, we're going to create our top header for our store name. So we're selecting the rectangle tool, and we're going to draw a box. We're then going to go back to the selection tool to manipulate the box, and we want it to extend all the way to our bleed. So we're going right to left and all the way to the top. However, the bottom here, we're going to eyeball a good size header distance for this assignment. So you can see my height is about 2.625. Anything within there is fine. You can kind of eyeball it and see what you think is going to work the best. So we're going to fill in this header with our primary Pantone as indicated on the template on our assignment sheet. So we'll select Fill, and this is what is unique to InDesign. So you can see in our fill we have a list of colors. We have our cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, our standard print colors. And then for web designers we have our red, green, blue for our RGB colors. Useful colors, but there's definitely much more to use. So we are going to go to our Pantones. So on the top right hand side there are these three little lines of our color palette. If we select those, we have a drop down menu. Note that your box must be selected in order to select a new color swatch. So we'll select new color swatch. And now here's some key information. The color type we're selecting is a spot color. This would mean on a traditional printing press, it would need its own plate for color. So think of that Coca-Cola red or John Deere green. Those are colors outside of our spectrum for CMYK. Therefore, they must be their own spot color. From there, we're going to select our color mode. So we have a whole bunch of options. CMYK is standard for print. You could do RGB for web design, and then we have various different color books and color options to choose from. Today we're going to pick Pantone plus solid uncoated. So when we select this, it comes up with a whole bunch of color Pantone options. So we'll note again the spot color, Pantone plus solid uncoated. So the spot color I supplied, or the Pantone color I supplied for our primary Pantone was 313U. The U at the end of the Pantone number stands for uncoated. If there's a C, that means it's going to be coated, and you would select Pantone plus solid coated. So we'll type in the Pantone number, 313, and there you are, 313U. You can select Add. We'll also be using our secondary Pantone color, so if you select Add, you can add it to our color palette now. So the second color I've selected is 1565. We can also add that color. And now we are done. So as indicated on our assignment sheet, the top bar is our primary Pantone color. So make sure it's the blue color below. We're now going to add our bar at the bottom, which is also the primary Pantone. So we can draw a new box and select the color, or you're welcome to copy our first box and paste, and then we'll drag that down once again to our left and right outside bleed, and now for our bottom bleed. I'm going to make this box a little smaller, keeping in mind all my information must stay within the margin, so I want to give space to work with that area. There you are. So now for our next box, we'll use the rectangle tool again, and we're going to draw another box. Using our selection tool, we will manipulate the edges of the box to fit what we need. So this part I'm going to get you to eyeball, so we know our margin is about 1/2 inch. So we're going to eyeball kind of 1/2 inch between our top header box and this new box. And we'll drag it down, and we'll do the same, kind of keep some proportions here. We're eyeballing it. If you want, there's ways to make it perfect, but eyeballing it is okay for this assignment. So once again, we're going to select our fill box, and we're going to select our primary paint-on. However, as noted on the assignment sheet, this box is to be 50% of our primary Pantone. So to do that, it's within our fill guidelines, and you can change the tint. So we're changing the tint to 50%. So what that does is it takes away 50% of the blue colored dots when printing to make it appear like there's more white paper coming through, creating a lighter color. Oops. So we'll go back to our selection tool. So our next step is we're creating another rectangle with our rectangle tool, and this time the fill is going to be our secondary Pantone, 1565. So once again with our selection tool, the dark arrow, we are going to manipulate the box to fit our needs. So I want this secondary box to span our 2 columns, the center and the far right. We're going to make sure using our guidelines that it's going to be the same height as our left-hand rectangle. And this one's going to be tricky on the eye. I'm going to extend this, and I want there to be a space. So I'm going to take this first rectangle, I'm going to copy and paste, slide it down to the bottom so that the smart guides line up with the bottom of the left rectangle. And now I'm going to slowly manipulate these rectangles to kind of keep them roughly the same height. As you can see here, I have the arrows have shown up to kind of show that they're the same height, but also kind of keeping that 1/2 inch space between them. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just looking for something close. So there we have the next part. So now we have all of our color blocks in place for this assignment. Now we need to add some lines. So there is the line tool on the left-hand side. So we're going to just draw any form of line. If it disappears like this on you, it's because there is no stroke for it. So a line is a stroke, just like an outline is a stroke. Sometimes it'll show up automatically as black. Sometimes it'll be whatever colors you've used last, or sometimes it'll show up as nothing. So for this stroke, as nothing, I'm going to the right hand side and selecting stroke, and because our assignment sheet says so, changing it to 0.5 width. So note it'll change to the last color that you've used. So that's all we want here is the 0.5 width. Then going to select our stroke color, and we're going to go with black, 100% K. So note that this line is diagonal and currently in a box. So if you want to manipulate it, it gets a little bit trickier to do so. However, there is a trick. If I use my direct selection tool, that is the white arrow, you can manipulate individual points. This is something that you might be familiar with if you've spent time in Photoshop or Illustrator. But our goal is now to create a straight line using our color guides. Or smart guides. My apologies, smart guides. So with our direct selection arrow, we can manipulate individual points. So we're going to make this line the same width as our left box, while making sure it stays straight. If that feels difficult, there is another way. With selecting our line tool again, click and hold your first point, and now holding the Shift key on your keyboard, it automatically helps you create a straight line. So that's a little trick. If your line disappears like this because you've clicked elsewhere, you can use the selection tool and drag over where you were working, and that should pick up your line. So we'll go over again to our stroke tool. The weight is 0.5 points, and it goes to your color you've last used. We want it to be black. Now we will drag this line into place. So I want this line to hit each side of this blue box, not extend. So sometimes you might have to do some manipulation. So our goal is to once again eyeball kind of three parts here. So we have our top, middle, and bottom sections. Now we'll take the line tool again, and we're going to create more lines. So we're creating more lines, making sure that each of them, our 0.5, and they're black. This quadrant, we're trying to use our smart guides to create 4 smaller boxes equally sized. So here are our line options. So remember that W tool you have on your keyboard. Select W, and now you can see we have our top box, and you can see even shows where the blue extends to the bleed. We have our inner 50% rectangle. Our secondary Pantone, we've now split into boxes. This line I feel is not straight, even though I use the guides to help. Sometimes that's just how it goes. Nope. So you notice how I'm not isolating a single point? Some things cannot be completed within our preview option. And ultimately, if you're not happy with it, you can change it. Just because it kind of worked the first time doesn't mean you can't do it again. Perfect. So next, we're going to take our type tool and add our store name. So I just want this box to extend to both sides of the margin. The store name is pretty important, and we don't want this information to exceed our margin. So here you can type in whatever you want for your hardware store name. So you can use an existing one, you can create your new one, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. From there you can select a font within your font book and decide which ones you want. I'm just going to pick a decent size, find one that I think works, a good size name. I'm going to align to center. I'm going to change the fill to paper, also known as white. And there we have the hardware store. If you really want to try and center it, you can use that W tool and maybe eyeball it to kind of find a center, but you'll notice the bounding boxes disappear. So when it prints, this is what we'll see. I'm then going to add information to the bottom. So using our rectangle frame tool, I'm creating a 0.5 by 0.5, so half an inch box as indicated on our assignment sheet. So remember the difference between our frame tool and our rectangle tool is the frame holds a position for a pending image where the rectangle is filled with color. So I'm going to use these boxes and I'm going to align them to the center and the bottom of this middle column. So I can copy, paste a box. I can Command C, Command V a box. And also, another trick of the trade, if you press Option or Alt on your keyboard, and you see I have a black arrow with an underline under white arrow. Well, if you click and drag something with that arrow, it'll also copy it. So multiple different ways to make this work, whichever one works best for you. If you want to go edit, copy, edit, paste, completely up to you. So next, holding the Shift key, we are going to select all 4 boxes. Remember that Align tool on the right hand side. There's 3 little dots for more options. We're selecting the Distribute Horizontal Centers. And this moves them so we have equal distance between all 4. So now we'll select the first one, File, Place, and we're going to our desktop where we find our AMCA assignment, our main folder, and in our main folder is our supplied folder with the social media icons that we copied from last week's assignment. So we will File, Place. If you like key commands, don't forget there's Command D for the place command, also, or Control D on a PC. So we have all 4 icons. Once again, holding the Shift key, I'm going to select all 4 and then right click with the mouse, fitting, fill frame proportionately. You should end up with 4 circles. I had a couple questions last week as to why some of the graphics and images were blurry. In InDesign, they have a unique feature. So with your graphics card on your computer, sometimes they're not always going to be super powerful, or sometimes it just makes your computer slower, the bigger graphics. So if you have these major resolution photos, or maybe you have an illustration with many, many details, this can slow down your computer looking at its full resolution all the time. So InDesign has a feature under Window, under View, Display Performance. So the standard one it picks is Typical Display Performance, and this tends to make your icons blurry. So if you're finding this, and we don't tend to do anything too crazy for our class, you can go to View, Display Performance, High Quality Display, and it kind of clears up the images. This may help. All right, so our last two pieces, we need to add our name to the bottom left corner and our website to the bottom right. So we're selecting our type tool, and we're going to draw a box. And in the box, you're going to type your name. For this, we're using our type tool. So our type font that was selected on your assignment sheet is Arial. So you can kind of type it in if you want to go that way, or you can scroll down and find what you're looking for. So many versions. So I'm going to scroll down to find Arial, and I just want regular. So Arial regular, I want to change the color to white because it will show up best. And I'm going to change the font size to something a little bit more legible. So as you notice, I even typoed the word name, but I couldn't see it before. So I'm going to take this box and I'm going to drag it down, and I want the type to sit within our margins. So here's an interesting thing to think about. So our text box extends past our margin, but our text does not. So this part is important. I don't want this to extend outside of the margin, but the text box doesn't print. Therefore, it can be whatever size you want. So now we're going to add our website to the other side. So I'm going to copy my text box and paste much, because then I don't have to try and remember what font size I used and everything the first time. I'm going to line it up with my previous one. So this now knows that they are equal on the margin line, so I don't have different heights of text, except I want to justify this to the right. So on our right hand side, we have our paragraph tool here, and we can align to the right hand side. So now my text is over here. And I'm going to type in my website. Oh look, my text has gone past my current text box. You can tell because I've lost some of the text, but also because I have this white and red box that appears. The easiest way to change that is going to my selection tool and extending the size of my box to fit the store name. All right, so that is it for part 1 of this assignment. So the next thing we need to do, if you forget to add your saved file name before, we're going to File, Save, and we have our working file name for this assignment. AMCA underscore A5 underscore flyer 1 underscore your last name. So this is just saving the file, so this can be saved to your desktop for the redundant saved file. And then we're going to File, Package. So we're going to Package. This shows we have 2 fonts, which should be correct. You have your branding font and your type text font. We have 4 links. So our 4 links currently are Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter. And that's everything we should have for today. Package. So we're going to save this within our desktop, within our main folder. Flyer 1 folder. We'll save that. And that's it for InDesign. Oh, I lied. Not it for InDesign. So I'm going to open back up our working file. And we must also do a secondary export. So as indicated on your assignment sheet, export. We are saving this within our main folder. So desktop, main folder. We're saving an Adobe Print PDF. Except this one, we are adding our full printer's marks and our bleed. And we are exporting this folder. Now we are finished. So what this shows in our folder situation for this week's class, we have our AMCA A5 main folder, our package folder with this week's assignments. This is the PDF that it creates so far, but we have exported a second PDF with our full marks and bleed, and we have our social media icons in our supply folder. So you can take this main folder, we're going to compress, and then as we've done previously, we're going to upload this folder to Brightspace. So this week I'm going to make you work for it, and you're going to do that on your own. I'm not going to show this part to you. So just make sure you upload this section of our assignment to Brightspace. Perfect. That's it for today, and I hope you enjoy it. See you next week.